The Invisible Man uses the idea of an unseen threat to make the audience feel fear, but I would argue that the story uses a different fear to maintain tension. The real problem the main character faces is not the villain, but getting people to believe the villain exists. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. And spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. We're going to take a look at 3 specific scenes in Act 1, 2, and 3 to see how the movie puts us in the main character's perspective and maintains that underlying tension. Let's start with the very first scene. And the big point I want to make here is how grounded this scene is. More fictional elements are introduced later on, but this intro scene is a pretty realistic depiction of a woman escaping an abusive relationship. And it conveys that idea all through visual storytelling. The way she wakes up at a specific time and sneaks out of bed, that she's put something in his drink, that she has a packed bag ready to go. We also learn about the man she's trying to leave. By the size of the house, there's obviously a lot of money involved. Money equals power. She has to go into a lab to disable the security systems. If someone has a lab, they're probably intelligent. These things build up the threat. And the cinematography establishes something here that's going to continue for the rest of the movie, focusing on empty space. The shot pans to a hallway. In most movies, this would be because we're supposed to see something in the hallway, but there's nothing there. The shot holds for several moments. We think surely something will come into the hallway, but it doesn't. The shot pans back to our protagonist, Cecilia. This establishes the idea that just because you can't see the threat doesn't mean it isn't there. We also learn about Cecilia when she saves the dog. She's compassionate. She risks her own safety to remove his shock collar. And in the final moment of the scene, if we had any doubt about the kind of man Adrian is, he punches through the car window. In the course of this 10-minute intro scene, the audience has been firmly placed in Cecilia's point of view. We lived through this escape with her. The scene happens early on in Act 1 so that we will carry that same tension through the rest of the movie. Let's now jump to the midpoint. If you've been following along this month of Movie Club, you'll know that the midpoint is where the overall story dramatically increases in tension. In this scene, Cecilia is alone in a house with an intruder she cannot see. And that's scary, but remember, there's an underlying tension that makes the scene even more suspenseful. At this point in the story, Cecilia has had several bizarre encounters with what seems to be an invisible person, but nobody believes her. And not just because the idea of an invisible person sounds crazy, but because Cecilia is claiming that the invisible person is Adrian, the man she left, and Adrian is dead. Everybody else tries to tell Cecilia she's giving into delusion. It gets to the point that Cecilia even questions herself, and we as the audience do the same. Is she going insane? That's when we arrive at this midpoint. Cecilia finally gets concrete evidence that she is not crazy and this is all real when she finds Adrian's phone in the attic. This might seem like a relief from the tension, but the unfortunate truth is, if she's been right all along, that means somebody really is stalking her. And right at that moment, she hears a sound, like somebody is climbing the ladder into the attic. Again, we see that shot of empty space. Something should be there. Is something there? And then we finally actually see something. This movie was written and directed by Leigh Whannell. By the time he worked on this movie, he'd already produced a number of famous horror movies, including the Insidious movies. He clearly understands how to put tension in a scene. And the first half of Invisible Man plays out like a paranormal horror movie. It feels like Cecilia is being haunted by a ghost when the Invisible Man does subtle things like turning the burner up or stealing her portfolio from her briefcase. It makes this reveal all the more dramatic because now the threat has become tangible. And this is demonstrated in a really terrifying way as the threat continues to aggressively attack Cecilia. Trying to fight against something you can't see is definitely scary, but the real tension comes back at the tail end of the scene. When Cecilia escapes the house, there's a very deliberate shot. It's a security camera feed from a neighbor's house that shows her running into the night, and nobody is chasing her. Even though we as the audience are now fully confident that the threat is real, it still seems hopeless that anyone will believe Cecilia's story. In this shot, she just looks insane. This scene occurs in the middle of Act 2, at the movie's midpoint. This is where the tension is dramatically increased. There's several scenes after this that continue to escalate things, but the beginning of that escalation is here, with the threat manifesting itself, both in the physical attack by the Invisible Man and the implication that there's nothing Cecilia can do about it. Let's jump to our third and final scene now. Late in the third act, Cecilia returns to Adrian. Even though people now know that Cecilia wasn't making things up this whole time, the blame has been shifted to Adrian's brother. So according to most people, Adrian was innocent all along, but Cecilia knows better. She joins Adrian back in the house we started in. We're coming full circle. So if our primary fear of this movie really was the literal Invisible Man, an unseen physical threat, this final scene would likely feature a big confrontation with an Invisible Man. But we don't get that. We get a dialogue scene between Cecilia and Adrian in which she's desperately trying to get him to admit what he's done.
It wasn't me. I swear it.
Why can't you just tell me the truth?
I am.
This is because the fear of the movie is that through his manipulation, people do not believe she's in danger. That's why this scene is still suspenseful, even though there is no Invisible Man. The way Adrian has become the Invisible Man is by making sure nobody sees the man he truly is.
Because I know you better than anyone else in the world. I mean, that shouldn't come as a surprise.
This movie is about power and who holds it. Adrian holds power over Cecilia with his money, his high-tech suit, and the way he's able to manipulate a situation so that she questions her sanity. The character arc for Cecilia is reclaiming that power and using it against Adrian. So in this final scene, we see her use his own tactics to turn the tables. She does exactly what Adrian has been doing the whole movie and manipulates the situation to look like one thing when it's truthfully something else entirely.
What is your emergency?
Please, you have to help me, please. I'm with somebody. 333 Celestial Drive.
And this time, it doesn't end so well for Adrian.
Surprise.
Throughout this movie, we're seeing a heightened version of a common situation. Even though sci-fi elements are introduced, the story is still essentially about a woman suffering abuse and struggling to get people to believe her claims. Many women have experienced something like that before, so this movie helps all audiences, men included, understand that kind of situation by firmly placing the audience into Cecilia's perspective. And that perspective is maintained and reinforced through the tension in these three scenes at key points in the movie. And we've been looking at these types of scenes in all of our movies this month. In No Country for Old Men, the coin toss scene established the antagonist's philosophy. This occurred in the first act so that we could anticipate his actions in several more scenes throughout the movie, therefore creating natural tension for those scenes. In Inglourious Basterds, the bar scene caused the protagonist's plan to get completely derailed. Very few people that went into that bar made it out alive, which makes the hero's goal much harder to achieve. The stakes are raised right at the midpoint. In The Silence of the Lambs, the protagonist chooses to go into a very dangerous situation to try and rescue an innocent person. We might question the hero's decision, but we learned how the story established the character and themes in Act 1 and 2 so that this decision made sense. And as a result, a scene where our main character is in a dark basement with a serial killer is made even more suspenseful. And now we've seen how those scenes of suspense track across an entire movie in The Invisible Man. Maintaining tension in a story seems easy when it's done well, but it's something that is carefully crafted and structured. Filmmakers go over every detail to make sure they can keep the audience on the edge of their seat. And I thought this was a fitting theme as we head into October. Many of us will be watching scary movies, and I hope that now you'll be more appreciative of how those movies create tension. If you're a nerd like me and you're watching at home, you can even pause the movie and see the timeline. If you're feeling really intense, chances are the scene is going to occur around the end of Act 1, the midpoint, or toward the end of Act 3. I'd love to discuss your thoughts on The Invisible Man and/or our monthly theme as a whole. Did you notice anything new or have any cool observations? Let me know. And with that, we conclude our September movie club. I'll be announcing the movie lineup and theme for October tomorrow, so stay tuned. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.